All right, for the purposes of this and setting up a promotional or a professional, sort of small press company website, I'm going to show you from this old site that I did many, many years ago, the back end, because this is no longer maintained. And I'm going to show you WordPress. And the reason why is because WordPress is incredibly easy on the end user to maintain and update content. It is first a blog platform, meaning you can create blog posts, set things up, and edit them without a lot of going into this kind of code. You have what you see is what you get editor that allows you to drag and drop and add media from a media gallery and set things up pretty easily. It allows a decent amount of functionality just out of the basic sort of setup. So this is a post in WordPress. You can also do pages in WordPress, and pages are, of course, not posts with constantly updating content, but they are just sort of basic. Yes, very old website. They are sort of basic, information structures that you can kind of, set this information up in, but they all look like like the same what you see is what you get editor. Now, there's more complex ways and versions of doing stuff with this, but this is why I usually give this as a CMS platform to people. There are others out there. Joomla is one of them. I would not suggest it without tech experience. It does take a lot to maintain generally, and I'm currently fighting a huge spam issue on one of my client sites with a Joomla setup. Drupal is another one, and it is a decent one as well, but it does take a little more tech expertise. So the other reason that I suggest WordPress is because if you want to get something that looks really good, there is a site called ThemeForest and many other places where you can find themes to update it. All right, so WordPress works with themes. Themes are just a way to install different sort of setups, different sort of looks that create much better visual styles. And I'm going to show you a theme. This is a premium theme. It costs $50 from this site, but it can get a lot of visual bang for your buck. A lot of these things are built in. All you have to do is supply images. Rarely, so long as you are willing to be limited by how they have things set up, rarely do you have to do a lot of custom coding, and they provide a lot of information. They also provide different options for the theme. So here's a fixed width version of that theme that compresses stuff down. Here are a title rotator that is built into it. You can also extend functionality by adding plugins and doing other things, but this is sort of how you can get a good looking website, putting in the work yourself and setting all this content and information up without, having to code it from scratch. So these are the reasons why I generally go with WordPress. If it's a site that I'm going to hand off to a client and they don't want to continue, maintenance or having me update things. All right, so installing WordPress. It is very easy to install. They have a thing called the famous 5-minute install, and they have documentation and structures on it here. Now, sometimes in your hosting, there will be an option for something called Softaculous, or a script to install WordPress automatically. You have disabled that on mine. But you can go through and just click on their script, and it will install the WordPress install just instantly, just getting some information. If you do not have that, the basic steps to install it, and these are all covered on their information, are to set up a database, set up a user, and this is why the hosting is important, because it makes it easy, and then add the database to, or add the user to the database with permissions. You don't necessarily want to turn on all of these. And you can see which ones you will need in WordPress, but you can turn them all on. It just does open some small security vulnerabilities if somebody compromises the database. So once you've done that, you then have the information for that database and that user that you can go and put into WordPress to install it. All right. Here is their famous 5-minute install. Once you've got a database set up, you download WordPress from their download, and then you upload it into your site. And of course, I'm giving a quick overview because it would take a long time, but you could just upload it here where your site has that and then unpack it. And then once you do that, it will take you to, and go to the site, it will take you to an install screen, which I'll show you a demo of. All right, WordPress's install screen, if you go to your URL and have WordPress set up, it would look something like this. Would be asking for a username, password for a database, but you may have to go into something called WP config and add that. That is the most complex part of this process. You just have to go in here and put in the database name, your username, and the password here. That is the very basic most you would have to do, and the installing WordPress does have information on exactly how to do it and a good tutorial showing you exactly what you need to do and how you need to update it. The one thing that I would suggest looking for in here is called table prefix. Find an example so you can see what it looks like in there in the code. All right, here's what it looks like in the code. Table prefix equals WP underscore. You can change this to something else and just gives it a unique identifier. I would suggest it as a security means. So outside of just adding in the database username, password that you set up, and this is only if it doesn't do the automatic install on yours. You take WP config sample, change it to WP config, add in this information per the editing WP config and installing WordPress page, and also look for something called table prefix and update that. It should go through the rest of the install and get it set up for you. Once you are done with that, you will have a base WordPress theme all set up, and it will look something like, these are all older themes, but I'm going to activate it and show you. It will look something like this with not very much content in it. Of course, this is all the content from that I had in this site before, and going back to the theme that I had installed, we'll change it back to looking how it looked before. So that is the basics of getting it set up in 3 parts. Domain name, so that they can find your site and pointing that to the correct place, making sure you're the owner, hosting that can handle it, and then a WordPress theme. Now the next one is going to go into actually getting it to look better and look not like a blog and getting content set up. And so I'll show you kind of how that works a little more in depth.